All right, welcome everyone to episode 11 of the We Can't Believe They Gave Us a Show with Nick and Jim. That's the title, and they let us keep that. Rick, can you believe it?
I
I
can't
didn't
believe it.
I didn't know we were going to get past episode 1 of that title, but here we are on episode 11.
Funny how time flies.
Yeah. Or they're just
Right?
not or they're just not paying attention.
I don't
But
know. They invited us to FDIC. I mean, come on.
yeah, boy, we fooled them. He's Nick Magato. I'm Jim Bernica, and today our special guest is Rick Cheatham. Kelly or Rick Cheatham, depending on what you on the screen there. How's it going,
Well,
Rick?
it's going well. The better half is not with me, so unfortunately, you're stuck with me and that guy,
The mustache logo.
the
That's pretty,
mustache logo.
it's pretty epic. You need to get stickers made.
You know what? Someone asked me to make that sticker out of that. I thought,
Yeah.
that's a good
And then
idea.
you could shamelessly plug yourself like Nick and I do.
Yep.
Well, every time I go to an event, I always see your guys. You got those little stickers everywhere.
Yeah, we're taking over.
I'm surprised I didn't find a bunch of them in Nashville posted up on all the signs that are around that town when you
The
guys were in
all the
town.
all
Just
the
start sticking all your
the
pictures
bathroom
up,
stalls.
bathroom stalls. Just-
Uh, well, it's funny because Nick and I officially met you in March at the FRCE Mental Health and Suicide Conference, and we got to hang out with you and Kelly, have dinner together, and that was great. And then I got a bonus visit with my wife and your wife when I was back in Nashville in July. But you're coming to us for a change.
yes.
So
Yes.
you're going to be here October 16th. You're going to kick off our show for us, the keynote on that Thursday. No pressure, right?
No, not at all.
I mean, there's
Jeez.
thousands of people. They're hanging from the rafters.
Yeah. Oh boy. Thanks for really making it easy for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
So and by the way, I should say too, like, for those, because we're not going to do a super deep dive into Rick's past, because I mean he's going to talk about it at our show. But you can also listen to episode 42 of APS Radio, where that's where you and I first met, and also
yes.
our mutual pal James Gearing did an excellent show with you too on Behind the Shield.
Yes.
Yes, but
Indeed.
let's kind of just jump into when you come to exotic Beaver Creek in October. What what kind of what's your goals? What are you going to talk about?
Well, what I find most fascinating in the fire service is how our minds are geared to deal with trauma. We deal with trauma on a daily basis and it becomes second nature. But it's somebody else's trauma that we're always dealing with. We're not dealing with our own internal compass, our own internal thoughts, our own internal mindset. And so the journey that I've taken with the death of my son, and then followed up 5 months after I retired, falling and breaking my neck and was left paralyzed for a few months, got me really thinking. It got me really thinking about how my mindset had allowed me to navigate through the fire service. And now here I am the career's over, and I get injured at such a level that my mind starts going back to all the things that uh, were problematic with my condition. So my focus was constantly on negativity. It was on the what have I lost? I lost my son. I've lost my mobility. Um, and as I started to dwell on those things, my life just started to spin out of control. I mean, resentment, anger, bitterness, hostility, and all the things that come when you focus in on things. And the law of concentration says that whatever you focus on, that's basically what you manifest. You what you think, you create. The Bible even goes a little bit further, and it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So one of the things that really came to my mind through all this process is, when we're in the fire service, a lot of stuff happens to us, and we take that baggage home with us to our families, and we we offload it, we dump it. And the cycle in the marriage uh, becomes one of conflict, hostility, uh, anger, needs aren't being met, resentment. And we focus on those things at such a degree that we don't know how to spin out of it. And that's where I found myself until I realized that there was one key component to everything that I was doing that would help me cycle out of that mindset that was digging a hole for me and my family. And that was coming to the realization that I was harboring a lot of resentment and anger towards the man that murdered my son, and I thought I was justified to do so. I mean, if I were to ask you or anybody, hey, am I justified to be angry that the man murdered my son? 9 out of 10 would say absolutely. And then that 1 out of 10 would go, well, I totally understand why you would. However, there is another path out. And I found a guy that gave me that 1 in 10 shot that there's another path out. And that path out was I had to come to the realization that the more I focused on what I lost, my son, the more I focused on what I would never experience, him having kids, the legacy that he would leave for the Cheatham name. It was like a branch was cut off the tree forever and it was never coming back. And so when you focus in on that kind of loss, the result is going to be resentment. It's going to be anger. It's going to be betrayal. It's going to be bitterness. And what I realized is that a lot of us carry that on to our homes when we deal with the stuff we got to deal with at work. We got chief officers that don't necessarily treat us with the respect and the dignity that we think we deserve. We have, supervisors that, may overlook or pass us up on things that we wanted to do. We may have wives that, are constantly looking at us with a sense that, you're prioritizing work over me. Why is it? Why do you put your all into this department when this department you're just a number to them? Why do you put all that priority? And so we see all these things happening, but we don't know how to deal with it until it's too late sometimes. And what I discovered was the one fundamental thing that cured the resentment, the hostility, and the anger was the ability to actually forgive the man that killed my son. So the whole process for me is about learning how to forgive the unforgivable. And we all have people in our lives that we just look at and go, man, that's just there's no hope for that person, or that there's no forgiveness for what they've done. I look at people like child predators, or mass murderers, or things like that, or even the things that we responded to as firefighters, gang violence, domestic violence, the trauma that children can experience at the hand of other children. And we deal with that, but we don't always necessarily recognize just how much influence that has on our personal lives and our personal development. And so the longer we harbor those bitterness emotions and resentments, the law of concentration says if you're going to focus on it, guess what you're going to get? The Bible speaks of a thing called sowing and reaping. If you're going to sow a seed, and the seed is the thoughts into our mind, which is our garden, then what do you think is going to grow? You can't plant resentment in the ground and expect joy to pop out on the other side. It's just not going to happen. So we have to be able to take full responsibility, 100% accountability for the things that we think, so that we can change the emotional output on what those things are, so that we can change behavior. And when we change the behavior, we change the dynamic of any relationship you'll ever be into. And one of the things that changed the behavior for me was the ability to actually sit down and get rid of the resentment by just absolutely forgiving, not letting him off the hook because he will suffer the rest of his life in prison. But there's no need for me to dwell on what I've lost because in doing so, I'm only going to create more loss. And I've decided that that's not who I am. I don't want to create any more loss for me and my family. We've had enough. It's time for us to revive the dead, if you will, not physically, but the loss that I have in my mind of my son. I can bring his memory back up, and I could focus on all the good that he accomplished. I could focus on all the wonderful things he taught me as his dad. I could focus on his laughter. I could focus on his personality, and I could see all of that vividly in my mind, and I can rejoice. I can have some joy around that. But the minute I go, but he's dead, I'll never see him again. And that mother effer, that guy took him away from me. And then all of a sudden, boom, I start spiraling down that staircase. Guess where I'm going to end up? I'm going to end up at the pit of resentment, bitterness, and anger. And that will come out in my life in every relationship that uh, that I tie myself to. There's no getting away from it at that point. So that's kind of like the nutshell of everything we're going to be discussing in October. It's the art of forgiving the unforgivable.
So Rick, I mean, it's just it's kind of an incredible story, and just, I mean, your life story is just incredible in that fact. Now, let me ask you, when you decided to, work towards forgiveness of the person that took away your child's life, was that, um, where where were you in the recovery process during the paralyzation? Did that did this effort to try to forgive help with your rehabilitation in that aspect, or did it kind of go hand in hand?
When when this first happened, I knew that this was a journey to learn to forgive. Um, I said the words. I felt like I meant it. Yet over time in the grief process, you start to see things differently. So I would see the effect it was causing on my wife. I could see the effect it was causing on my children and on my family. Um, and as you focus in on that, it just starts to spin out of control. So for me, as much as I want to say, yeah, I forgave the guy right off the bat, I couldn't. I said I could, but I just inside there was something that was tearing at me. And you can imagine, I mean, you can only focus on what you're losing at that point. So uh, it's hard to find the gift in that kind of adversity. So the real change didn't happen until several years later. So I'm probably now, let's see, he was murdered in 2013, 7 days before Christmas. And I retired from the fire service in November of 2020 as a result of COVID, moved to Nashville, Tennessee, right at that same time, and retired here. And 5 months into my retirement, I fell and broke my neck at C4 and 5 and was paralyzed. That's when all this stuff started to really cook up inside of me because now I'm dealing with rebound trauma. So now not only am I dealing with the trauma of a broken neck, possibly looking at being paralyzed for the rest of my life, having to change everything about my retirement. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to walk out of here. My spinal cord injury wasn't complete, so that means there was a little hope if I was willing to put in the work. So I just did. I started putting in the mindset. I started visualizing myself walking out of the hospital every single day for hours. I would watch myself walking out of the hospital. I'd tell my docs, I'm going to walk out of this place. I'd tell my nurses, I'm walking out of this place. I would do therapy, extra therapy on weekends just so that I could put in the work so that I could walk out of this place. So my mind was already geared on walking out. Then after I got out of the hospital and everything went back to quote unquote normal, I was left alone with just my thoughts. And that's when the work really started, Nick. That's when that that connection of feeling like a victim, feeling like life isn't fair, like this is this shouldn't be happening to me. I don't deserve this. Or worse yet, what did I do that I don't know what I did to deserve this? It was that focused in on being a victim of my circumstances that caused me to really want to say, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I got so low after the injury that I didn't even want to live anymore. If somebody took my life, I could care less. Please do me a favor. Take me out of this misery. Take me out of this suffering. But then I think, well, shoot, what's going to happen to my wife and my kids? They've already suffered the loss of their child and their sibling. And if my family was to suffer the loss of me right now, would they be able to hold on? Would they be able to stay together? Would they be able to make it through? And because I was in such a low space at that point, or a low point, that was just a low point in my life. I ended up meeting a guy. His name is Nick Santanastasso, and Nick, he has no legs, one arm, and he was born that way. And his outlook on life is such a magnificent, fresh uh, perspective. And it's all about mindset. It's all about mind shifting. And when I first talked with him, he said, what is it that you always think about now that you're in this situation? I said, I feel useless as a man. I can't use my body. I feel useless. I feel like I can't be the husband that I wanted to be. And I feel like my life is ruined. And he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, do you think I'm useless? And I said, of course not. He says, I was curious because you put a lot of emphasis on your body mechanics to determine whether or not you're of value to the world. And that sent a light bulb off in my head. It says my mind was not going in the direction that I can choose to go. And so through that, I worked through the process of, well, what's holding me back? Why is my mind in this position? What is it that I need to deal with? What do I got to confront? And the thing that came to mind was I got to confront the lack of a unforgiving heart. And the reason that really came to resonate with me is because, I've been married almost 40 years, be 40 years in February. And my wife is my answered prayer. I literally prayed for her physical look, her spirituality, her emotional makeup, her character, everything about her. I prayed very specifically for. That lady walked into my wife two. She walked into my life 2 weeks after that prayer, and it was like, whoa, that's man. I looked at God and go, man, you're good. If you can do, man, wow. And 6 months later, we were married. But from 6 months of knowing her, marrying her, fast forward 10 years, that very same answered prayer says, I hate you, I hate God, I hate the church, I quit. How did I take my answered prayer to I hate you, I hate God, I hate the church, I quit? And I'll tell you how I did it. I was addicted. I was an addict. I was an addict to porn. I was trying to anesthetize the pain and the emptiness that I had inside from childhood development years, where I felt like I had no value, where I felt like I was useless, where I felt like I didn't have a voice. So I had to go back and deal with all of that kind of trauma and put it into its rightful place and its perspective. And one of the things that came up in all that was you were pretty much an unforgivable husband. You not only betrayed your wife, your answered prayer, but you betrayed her with pornography. You betrayed her with, you know, uh, an affair. You betrayed her uh, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You let her down. And not only did I betray her with things like that, is it okay to just be real vulnerable and honest with you guys? Can I just be real?
Absolutely.
I betrayed her with prostitutes. When you look at that, you look at what a man can do to his own family and to his own wife, and you think, man, that's just unforgivable. If I can sit here and hold the man that murdered my son to the account that you don't deserve to be forgiven, then I got to look at myself and say, guess what? You don't either, clown. And that resonated with me pretty hard, that my wife forgave me. My wife did the work to get over the pain and the hurt that I caused through betrayal. And in doing so, she gave me, for the first time in my life, unconditional love. And it was her unconditional love that she showed me that made me take a hard look at the mirror of who I was willing to forgive or not forgive. I don't like to get real religious on people, so I'll just say it like this. I'm going to be very spiritually minded. But in my spiritual mindfulness, the Bible resonates with me because I spent so many years in religion and studying the Bible to become the man that I felt God wanted me to be. And in studying the Bible, what what comes to mind was, you know, there was this parable of an unrighteous servant, who was forgiven by his master everything that he owed, forgave everything. And yet he turned around and demanded from the people he had oversight of, you pay me this, and took him by the throat and demanded repayment. Meanwhile, on the other hand, his master said, I forgive you of everything. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be that faithful servant uh, that was forgiven everything and then turn around and be an unfaithful steward and not forgive anybody else for what they've done. I just didn't know that it was going to take the murder of my son for me to connect those two. And I don't want anybody to have to go through that process of dealing with childhood loss, especially as a parent. You don't ever want to deal with that. But since I was thrown into that and I had no choice, I ended up having to deal with it no matter what. I just felt like forgiving the unforgivable has to start with the man in the mirror, because when we really look at it, I mean, if we're really honest with ourselves, um, we can look in the mirror and there's probably a lot of things in there we regret. There's a lot of experiences we've had that we wish we would have changed things. There's a lot of, emotion that we had and probably would have been better served if we would have done things a little differently. And so if we really take that hard look in the mirror and say, you know what? I need to be forgiven for a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things in my life that I've done that I probably should let go of. But I hold on to it because I think it's part of my identity. And I believe that, I am this character I'm playing, that I'm a terrible person. I'm just a terrible person. Look at what you've done. And I could focus in on it and then I would become that terrible person. Or I could forgive myself. And you know what, guys? That was probably the hardest thing I had to do. Forgiving the guy that murdered my son was just, it took 10 years. But I still wrestle with forgiving myself for what I caused my family in those childhood development years when I was struggling with a porn addiction, and how that was affecting my marriage and the small children that we were raising together in that environment. So forgiveness for me became the tool. to breach that door to get to the other side where you can have peace, where you can find joy, where you can find happiness again, even in the midst of all the adversity, conflict, and challenges that go along with dealing with having your son murdered or breaking your neck and being paralyzed. So, the moral of this story is it doesn't matter what happens to us in life. Life's going to happen, and life is not fair. It's going to happen. But we get to choose how we will interpret that adversity. Will it be a lesson in focusing on what you're losing, focusing on the fear of what you could possibly lose, the fear of what people might think, the fear of what people might say, the fear of your promotability going forward in the fire service, or the fear of being accepted as a retiree, whatever that fear is, we've got the choice. We can focus in on that and get mad, angry, bitter, hostile, become victimized by the circumstance, or we can cycle out of that and have peace, joy, hope by learning to do what Jesus did on the cross when he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I believe a lot of us, we really don't know what we're doing. We're just living life, man, and life has its way of ebb and flowing through, and you get dealt a bad hand at times, and you learn to deal with it. But that bad hand has a way of sticking with your memory and has a way of coming out in future experiences where it just comes out, and it gnaws at you. My stepmom, she said, I've noticed such a huge change in you. She said you had this undertone of anger everywhere you went, and it was true. Everywhere I went, I was angry, I was mad, and anything could set me off. And I've chosen now to say, instead of focusing on what I lost, my goal now is to focus on finding the gift in the adversity. And as I change my focus, that law of concentration, that sowing and reaping, instead of focusing in on loss, I focus on the gift. What is the gift? And so the gift of my mobility, or the lack of mobility through the injury, was I got to spend the first year absolutely doing nothing, just rehabbing, just trying to think, just trying to, I mean, there was no way I could be distracted by going and doing the honeydew list or going and doing construction or going and doing anything. I could literally not move. And that gave me the opportunity to really think about who I am and what I was going to do with the rest of my life, having lived these many years only to be here now. And when I made that decision to change the perspective, everything changed for me. I mean, everything. It was like the weight of the world came off my shoulders. It was like I could actually see clearly again. I could actually start to have confidence that I could manifest the desires of my thoughts. I could literally start saying, okay, I want to focus on these good things rather than these bad things. And I found the gift of my paralysis was the ability to come to know who I really was and what I was made of. But the gift in my son's murder was something that was that was impossible. I could not find a gift. I couldn't do it. And then I reached out to my father and I asked him, I says, I'm trying to find the gift in all this adversity, and I just cannot find the gift in Michael's death. And he said these words, and it kind of rocked me. He said, what if Michael's gift was his death? Yeah, I just stepped back and go, wow, what if his death was the gift? How could that be possible? And I said, man, please clarify that. Explain that. He said, before Michael died, our family was, especially my dad, uh, although we had a great relationship, there was always something there that just it wasn't. How do you explain it? There was always a like a disconnect, if you will, between my dad and my wife, or my dad and our family. But what Mike's death did is it brought all of our family together as one, and everything that had happened in the past was like gone. And it was like a big do-over for us. And our family was able to reconnect at a level that we had never connected. See, my dad divorced my mom after 34 years of marriage, and we were all grown adults. I was married, I had my own kids, and my dad and mom are divorcing after 34 years, and my whole marriage was emulated around his marriage. And when they divorced, it rocked my world, and it caused us to pull away, and it caused some friction that we had to work through. But Michael's death kind of brought everything back together to where we can get a do over and start fresh again. And we did. And we've got a great relationship to this day. So the gift was our family unity. Now, my family, my kids and my wife, we still suffer. I'm sure the rest of my family does too, but there's still, we're still dealing with the consequences of grief. My children are still navigating through grief. We're all navigating the best way we know how. The difference is today that we know how to love through the adversity. We learn how to love through the challenges instead of pointing the finger and blaming and criticizing and judging them for not being where we think they should have been or where they wanted to be. We now just to get to love them right where they are without trying to change the outcome. What forgiveness does is it shows unconditional love. And in that process of showing unconditional love also comes gratitude and joy. And when you can have those things resonating in your mind more so than the adversity, what you lost, the fear, and all the negativity that comes along with it, man, you are going to be a much better person. You're going to show up differently in life. You're going to show up differently for yourself. You're going to show up differently for your family, your wife. You're going to show up differently for people because you're going to have an understanding and an empathy that not many people get to experience. And that is the understanding of how people deal with their own trauma.
Powerful, powerful stuff, Rick. You know, I gotta tell you, when we first spoke, probably about a year ago or so, I knew then, I was like, this guy's story needs to be shared. And I happen to have a platform and a couple platforms in order to do that. And because I've already had the vision of you there. I've already had the vision of you speaking, how influential you are going to be to the audience. And I can see myself being the exclamation point because after you're done, I want to simply go to our audience members. I want to simply ask, what what are you still holding on to? What have you not forgave? If this man can forgive his son's murderer, why can't you forgive and move past whatever you're dealing with? Because I'm
Right.
willing to bet it's not the same. And I hope that is a really big aha moment. Like, yeah, you know what? That's right. Because I could tell you it's not the same, but I had a lot of anger towards somebody and getting past that and forgiving them. Oh my God, the closure that I received out of that and being able to move forward and not have that hate, that anger, that
Mm-hmm.
animosity, it was freeing. It was liberating.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's just so it's like a load is lifted off of your shoulders. All of us we can remember how many times we've had to climb a staircase loaded down with BA bottles, freaking hose lines, all of our gear, and we're just walking up these stairs, man. But we're not even thinking about it because we've got a goal, we've got a mission, we're trying to get to where we need to go so that we can make a difference. But when you start to really think about it from a training perspective, man, it just, oh my God, I got to try. And it becomes so grueling. But the minute our focus shifts to an outcome that is beneficial for our well being, everything changes. It's like you're floating. It's like you're not, the effort's not even there anymore. It's just like, hey, life is good again. I never thought life would ever be good again after Michael's death. In fact, what I used to think, I was 52 years old when he was murdered. And one of the things I would think was, how am I going to spend the rest of my life as a grieving dad? How am I going to spend the rest of my life never experiencing the physicality of my son again? And all of us have that one thought that we just keep going back to, ruminating on. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So we ruminate on all of the negative emotional baggage of life. And we think that's what life is. And it's right. We create that reality based off of the emotional state that we show up in reality with. Are you angry, bitter, resentful? Do you feel betrayed? Do you feel like you've been victimized? Do you feel like you've been taken advantage of? Do you feel like people are using you? Well, guess what? That mentality will create the very reality to prove that that's who you are. You will create the very evidence that will support whatever it is that you believe. So if I can produce that kind of mentality in my own life with negative, and we all see it, every one of us feel that so well. We are very aware of negative emotion in our lives, anger, resentment. We all do it. We are very aware of it. But shifting it to something positive seems to be where it was for me. It's where I had my fall, if you will. It was hard to shift the gear. But shifting gears looks like this: adversity, chaos, challenge, heartbreak, all the things that life tends to bring to us, it also brings us some good things. So if we're going to blame life on all the bad shit that happens to us, then we also have to blame life for all the good stuff that happens too. Because life brings us a lot of good things. It brings us success in our careers. Shoot, it brought careers. I mean, the greatest opportunity I ever had was being a fireman for 25 years. That was the greatest thing I could have ever accomplished career wise. Life brought that to me. It brought me the people that I got to experience. Hell, the people that I got to work with in Anaheim after my injury, I had people flying out to Tennessee to stay with me bedside the entire 3 months I was in the hospital. There was always somebody from Anaheim at my bedside the entire time I was in the hospital. 2,000 miles away, they're flying out here. The nursing staff says, man, we get people out here that's got family 30 minutes away and we never see them. And you got people coming from 2,000 miles away and they're here every day. This was their takeaway. You must be a loved man. And that's exactly right. So I could focus on the fact that I'm a loved man, or I could focus on the fact that I can't move my body anymore. So for me, focus on the good. So I focused in on the love and support that was being showed to me by my fire family, the love and support that was being shown to me by my wife, who is a nurse, who created an environment in that hospital room that all of staff wanted to come in there and just hone in and hang out with me because it was such a peaceful environment. We had essential oils going. We had beautiful music playing. We had just an environment that was conducive to healing. Where everyone else was all focused on what I was losing, I was focused on, hey, I'm going to walk out of here. And I did. So getting on the other side of that was, okay, there's one more hurdle I got to figure out. And that's this one with my son's murderer. What am I going to do with that? And that's when it became very clear you have to put the same energy and the same focus that you did on walking out of the hospital as learning how to forgive the unforgivable. So where you put your attention, energy flows. So if my energy is going in the direction of my attention, then what's my attention on? What is my focus on? So we get a choice. We can focus on the negative aspects of life and what we're losing. That's called fear. Or we can focus on the positive aspects of life, on what we're gaining with anticipation, and that's called love. So for me, it boils down to two things. We're either navigating life through the lens of fear or love, and it's our choice. Some would say fear or faith, and I would call that faith, but I don't want to get it mixed up with this faith that, hey, the faith of going to church 3 times a week is the faith that's going to save you. No, I'm talking about the faith of knowing that there is a God and that this God is greater than anything we could ever think of. And he wants what's best for you. He wants to give, he wants to create for you. He wants to have he wants you to have the abundant life. But you can't have an abundant life, that freeing life that you were talking about, Jim. You can't have that if you're going to focus on the fear of what you're losing. And so that's what it all comes down to. You're either going to focus on the fear of what you're going to lose, or you're going to focus on the faith of what you're going to gain. And if you're focusing on the gain of faith, then you're also focusing on unconditional love. You can't have the two without one. They follow simultaneously. If you're going to have love, you're going to you're going to live a life of faith. If you're going to have fear, you're going to live a life of struggle, pain, and suffering. And when you live that kind of lifestyle, the life of fear of what you're going to lose, the pain and the suffering are so great that we turn to anesthetize that suffering through drugs, sex, alcohol, food, um, shopping, you name it. We could work. I mean, we could anesthetize our pain with a lot of different things out there. And many of us are navigating life, navigating through pain by doing things that are hurtful to ourselves and those around us.
Now, Rick, I mean, I would have to imagine it's not a one and done type of thing. I mean, it's an everyday. I'm sure every day you have to kind of wake up and work on continuing that forgiveness, right? I mean, it's not just a okay, I forgave that guy. Now I'm going to move on with my life and it's going to be wonderful. It's an everyday thing, right?
It's a decision. Yeah, it's a choice. It's a choice that, man, just not just the forgiving portion, man. I mean, that's one aspect of it. It's every day. Every day. In fact, I ended up developing a curriculum to help teach fire husbands how to navigate the adversity of their marriages with whatever's interfering with it. But one of the fundamental, and it's called start where you stand. You know where we get that from? Mass casualty incidents. Where do you start when you have to, you have to assess multiple patients and it's only you and your crew? Well, you call for reinforcements and then you start where you stand. So in marriage, it's the same thing. You start where you stand. Well, as a man, we all have to start where we stand. And it's and the process isn't a one and done, like you said, Nick. It's not a one and done. It's every day. Every single day we wake up, we're going to be challenged with what we think. And so by becoming aware, which is uh, the fundamental principle of just knowing what your mind's doing, if we can shift gears from, just that's just life, that just happens, that's just the way it is, and not have any control over the direction, then we're going to be victimized and we're going to be tossed to and fro like a ship with no rudder in a storm. We're just going to go wherever the winds blow us. Or we can have a conscious awareness of how our thought process is, and we can catch it and turn it, catch it and train it again. And it's kind of like the fire service. You don't go through the fire academy and then come out the other side and say, okay, man, I'm done with training. I'm good to go. No, you train for the rest of your career. The same thing happens in our spiritual world or in our emotional world. We are constantly training by catching the thoughts that cycle us into these circumstances of victimhood, reformat it, look for the gift, and then take off on a new emotional state of being. That happens to me every single day. I'm constantly catching, turning, pivoting, evaluating, and saying, okay, what is the lesson here? What is it that I need to learn here? What is this adversity teaching me here? What is the gift that I need to uncover here? And then move forward. So yeah, it's a daily event. It's a lifetime. It's never going to stop. As long as we're on this side of the dirt, our minds are either going to be growing or they're just going to become stagnant and we're just going to become, mediocre. And I don't want to be mediocre. I want to have a difference. I want my life to make a difference, not only for myself, but for others who feel the same pain I've been through.
Wow. I, Nick, I gotta tell you, you need to put me in for some CEUs. And the title could just be Rick's Wisdom.
Wow. I
It's
Because
powerful
appreciate that.
stuff.
I
it is.
appreciate
It's
that.
it's like going to school listening to you. In a
Wow.
good way. A good way. Not school that I like, not
Well, I
actual
appreciate
school.
that. I surely appreciate that. Thank
Oh,
you.
man. No, I can't thank you enough for just being part of our lives now. And I know Nick and I are both looking forward to spending a couple days of quality time with you on our homeland for once.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm looking so forward to this, man. I had to thank you so much. This is such a tremendous opportunity. Um, I never thought in a million years that this is what I'd be doing after retirement. When COVID hit in 2020 and they said, "Yay, we're going to give you old timers, a golden handshake if you want to leave a little early," and I said, "Yeah, get me out of here. I'm ready to go." Um, I had no idea that this is the direction I was headed. I thought I was coming to Tennessee to, you know, run an Airbnb business and do some side construction to help support a little bit of my fun money and just kind of live out the rest of my life entertaining firefighters who come out to Nashville to hang out. Come stay in the Airbnb and we'll just smoke cigars and drink a glass of whiskey and just have a good time when you're here. And 5 months, man, that changed fast. And I was like, wow, hey, you can have all the dreams you want, but then reality hits when life slaps you inside the head and you go, okay, how am I going to deal with this? So this opportunity that you guys have given me and the platform to share my story, um, capitalize on some huge treasures and gifts that I found in that story along the way, so that another family can navigate their storms and have some hope that it doesn't have to end in divorce. It doesn't have to end with destruction. It can actually end with the pain that you suffer through together. It could actually be the cement that holds your bond together in such a way that it can never be broken. And that's what I offer to the men of our wonderful career, our fire service brothers, who in marriage so often find themselves struggling with things that are huge. They're meaningful in their lives, yet at the same time, it hasn't been to the level of losing your son or breaking your neck. See, what Nick did for me, not having any legs and only one arm, is he took my excuses away. I've got all my body parts. Well, almost all of them. I did lose a finger way back when, but I've got my whole intact body and it functions. It doesn't function like it used to. It's a little bit slower, but the nerve damage, it's coming back. It's going to take a while for all the nerve damage to be healed. But I don't have any excuses when I'm in the presence of Nick because Nick, no legs and one arm, took my body mechanics out of the equation and says, okay, now what's your next excuse? Well, guess what my next excuse was? Well, I lost my son. You don't know what that's like. Well, of course, he didn't know what that like, but you know what he does know what it's like? He lost his brother. He lost his brother to a heroin overdose. So he knows what loss looks like. He's watched his parents grieve. He knows what that looks like. He's lived it. So he took that excuse out of me too. So when we take the excuses out of our lives, we're left with absolute 100% responsibility for the direction you're going to travel. Where are you going to go, Rick? You going to keep using the same excuses? Nick's already taken those out of you. What are you going to use next? Man, when the excuses are gone and you're 100% responsible for the outcome of your life, then guess who's in charge of the direction you're going? Me. I have to take responsibility, 100% responsibility for where I am in life. And it was easy. I mean, it was easy to be a victim of a murdered child. That was, I mean, not easy in the fact of what it did, but just to become a victim of it. It just, I didn't have to work. I mean, everybody would have said, oh, you poor guy. I mean, it's the sympathy. Everybody said, oh my God, how did you do that? Oh my, and they all wanted to come around me and comfort me. That was the easy part. Staying victimized was the easy part. Finding the gift in that adversity to change my mental state, my emotional state, my state of being, that's where true emotional intelligence hits the pavement and the training really begins. When you can train yourself over and over, over and over, every time that thought comes in, pivot. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I get it. You deserve that. I get it. It was hard. Yeah, it was adversity like no other. So what are you going to do with it? Are you going to be victimized by it and then just kind of cower in the pool of fear, or are you going to rise above this and be a light to your brotherhood so that they don't have to suffer in their own adversity, so that they can be set free, so that they could have that weight lifted, like you were saying, Jim? Just this weight just gets lifted off you and life becomes beautiful again. When life becomes beautiful after tragedy, you know you've been doing the work to pivot your life in the direction that's going to make an impact on somebody else. And that's what this is all about. That's why we all joined the fire service. We came into this career because we wanted to make a difference in the lives of those we served and have a great time doing it with some of the most fantastic leaders that corporate America could ever find. I mean, the men and women that make up the fire service are the strongest, the boldest, the most inspirational of all characters in this thing called life. The career of a firefighter is to make a difference. So, on the other side of the fire service in retirement, what are you going to do? You all are making a hell of a difference with the platforms that you've created and the giving back to our brotherhood that you guys do. And in a small way, compared to what you guys are doing, in a small way, this one man wants to make a difference in the lives of the brotherhood that served him so well for 25 years and then showed their love and support by flying 2,000 miles to be with him bedside while he couldn't take care of himself. He couldn't even wipe his own butt. And that these people are out here just loving on you and making sure that you get through it. Man, you're not going to find that in corporate America. Only the fire service has that kind of camaraderie, that kind of connection, and that kind of love for their fellow man, for their fellow firefighter. And it's time to give back in retirement. So here I am. I'm just turned 63 years old. Can you believe that? And now it's time to turn that 63 years of experience into however many the Lord wants to give me from here on out, into making a difference and being a light in the darkness of those who are suffering in our brotherhood.
That's you can't finish any better than that. You can't. There's no
Very true.
questions, there's no follow-up, there's just nothing. We just need to go see you in October, basically.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. See you in
My
October.
my goodness. So Rick will be talking Thursday, October 16th. He will be starting things off in the morning as our keynote. Again, episode 42 is another deep dive with Rick and James. Gearing's episode on Behind the Shield with Rick was amazing too. Um, you want to let people know about your coaching as well and where to contact
Sure.
you?
Yeah. So I developed a coaching business. It's called RK Consulting Group for Rick and Kelly Consulting. I can be reached at rickcheatham.com. And what it is specifically, it's a course that I developed where I run fire husbands through uh, a 5 step process on how to change your marriage forever, change everything about it. Change, I mean, you want more sex? I know how to get more sex. When you start pouring into your wife at a level of emotional integrity, emotional intelligence, understanding, it changes the dynamic. So, our coaching program has a 5 step process where we bring husbands through it. And then at the end of it, they're at a place in their lives where their marriage is thriving again. RickCheatham.com. I'm on Facebook at Rick Cheatham. I'm on Instagram at Ricky C. AFD, I believe it is Ricky C. AFD. And I do have a YouTube channel, but I'm just starting to learn how to operate that. So I'm still new with this whole process. But anyway, that's where I am now. Would love to have the opportunity to just speak with somebody that's suffering and looking for answers. So I offer a free 1 hour coaching call with anybody who's interested in looking into that potentially. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that.
Yeah, of course. And on top of that, you have a cool logo.
Yeah,
That's
look at that
that's
guy.
good looking guy. Much better than the logos Nick and I have. And by the way, Rick was talking about a different Nick. The Nick that's on this show has
Well, yeah,
all
he has
limbs.
all of his legs
I
and
got all
all of
my
his arms.
appendages.
Yeah.
He's got extra ones even, I think.
Well, that time at the nuclear
Uh,
power plant, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get you out of here now, Rick. Thanks again for joining us on the show. And we look forward to you being live with us in Exotic Beaver Creek.
I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to being out there with you guys. So thank you so much.
And for those listeners who don't know, they can purchase tickets for the conference at exoticbeavercreek.com. And
Exotic Beaver Creek.
That's a
yep.
real website. It's
Woo!
not a naughty site.
No?
Get your minds out of the gutters.
And it's
But
October 15th, 16th, and 17th. And Rick will be kicking off our 16th, October 16th as the keynote speaker.
Nice.
so, all right. He's Nick. I'm Jim, and that's Rick, and we are all out of time. We'll See you next month. Take care until then.
Thank you, guys.